Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to the intermediate course of my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Eric. In this lesson, we will learn how to say it's easy to do and it is hard to do. So let's begin. In this lesson, we will learn how to say it is easy to do this or that, and it is hard or difficult to do this and that. For example, easy to eat is tabeyasui, and difficult to eat is tabenikui. The formula for making these conjugations is to take the conjunctive form of the verb and adding the suffix yasui to say that something is easy to do, and adding the suffix nikui when saying something is difficult to do. The new words that you form are grammatically i-adjectives. If you recall the 10 basic verb conjugations, the conjugation that we use for easy to and difficult to is the conjunctive form of the verb. And as in our past lessons, let's do a quick review of how to make the conjunctive form. If you know the mas form of verbs, simply drop the mas, and what's left is the conjunctive form. For example, tabemas yields tabe. Conjunctive form of yomimasu is yomi, and the conjunctive form of tsukaimasu is tsukai. There are three major categories of Japanese verbs: the Category 1 or root-dropping verbs, Category 2 or last hiragana changing verbs, and Category 3 or the irregular verbs. For a more detailed explanation of how to form the basic verb conjugations, please review lessons 26 to 30. We will also be using verbs introduced in these lessons in our examples here. If you want to know more about basic Japanese sentence construction, please review lessons 22 to 24, all in our English playlist. However, if you start off from the dictionary forms, you need to remember a few things, depending on the category of the verb. If it's a Category 1 verb, simply drop the ru, and what's left is the conjunctive form. For example, the verb taberu, which means to eat. Drop the ru, and what's left is the conjunctive form, tabe. For Category 2 or last hiragana changing verbs, the last hiragana of the dictionary form is changed to the I series. These are the 9 kinds of endings: kugusu, bumunu, ru, tsu, and u. And to make their conjunctive forms, they all change to their I series counterparts, as you can quickly see here: kigishi, bimini, ri, chi, and i. So for conjugating Category 2 verbs, it's the verb ending you need to pay attention to, and you change them into the I series to form their conjunctive. As for the 5 commonly used irregular verbs, suru becomes shi, kuru becomes ki, and iku becomes iki. The verbs aru and da do not participate in this conjugation. Now, because the suffixes yasui and nikui convert verbs to i-adjectives, what it is that's easy or difficult to do takes either the topic particle wa or the subject particle ga. Let's look at our first example. The verb taberu, which means to eat. It is a Category 1 or root-dropping verb. The ru ending of taberu is dropped to form tabe, which is the conjunctive form. Adding the suffix yasui forms tabeyasui, tabeyasui, which means easy to eat. The sentence, sushi is easy to eat. In Japanese, sushi wa tabeyasui desu. Sushi wa tabeyasui desu. Sushi normally takes the particle wa and takes the particle ga if you're emphasizing that it's the sushi that is easy to eat and not some other kind of food. And just like all i-adjectives, yasui conjugates into the negative and past forms. You can review these forms in greater detail by reviewing lesson 15 on i-adjectives. So we have the conjunctive plus yasui to mean easy to. Conjunctive plus yasukunai means isn't easy to. Past tense of yasui is yasukatta, was easy to. And the past tense of yasukunai is yasukunakatta, which means was not easy to. And conjugating for tabeyasui, sushi wa tabeyasui desu. Sushi wa tabeyasui desu. Sushi is easy to eat. Sushi wa tabeyasku nai desu. Sushi wa tabeyasku nai desu. Sushi isn't easy to eat. Sushi wa tabeyasu katta desu. Sushi wa tabeyasu katta desu. The sushi was easy to eat. Sushi wa tabeyasuku na katta desu. Sushi wa tabeyasuku na katta desu. The sushi was not easy to eat. Let's examine nikui, difficult to do. Adding the suffix nikui to the conjunctive form tabe makes tabenikui, tabenikui, which means difficult or hard to eat. The sentence, fermented beans are hard to eat. Fermented beans is nattou, which is for most foreigners an acquired taste, and many Japanese don't find nattou delicious as well. In Japanese, nattou wa tabenikui desu. Nattou wa tabenikui desu. And just like all i-adjectives, nikui conjugates into the negative. Nikukunai, nikukunai, meaning it's not difficult to do. Past tense of nikui is nikukatta, nikukatta, which means it was difficult to do. And past tense of nikukunai is nikukunakatta, nikukunakatta, which means was not difficult to do. And conjugating for tabenikui, nattou wa tabenikui desu. Nattou wa tabenikui desu. Fermented beans is hard to eat. Nattou wa tabenikuku nai desu. Nattou wa tabenikuku nai desu. Fermented beans isn't hard to eat. Nattou wa tabeniku katta desu. Nattou wa tabeniku katta desu. Nattou was hard to eat. Nattou wa tabenikuku na katta desu. Nattou wa tabenikuku na katta desu. Nattou was not hard to eat. Let's look at a category 2 verb for our next example. The verb to drink, nomu. Its conjunctive form is nomi. Adding the suffix yasui to the conjunctive form nomi yields nomiyasui, nomiyasui, which means easy to drink. The sentence, water is easy to drink. In Japanese, mizu wa nomiyasui desu. Mizu wa nomiyasui desu. And conjugating in all four, mizu wa nomiyasui desu. Mizu wa nomiyasui desu. Water is easy to drink. Mizu wa nomiyasuku nai desu. Mizu wa nomiyasuku nai desu. Water is not easy to drink. Mizu wa nomiyasu katta desu. Mizu wa nomiyasu katta desu. Water was easy to drink. Mizu wa nomiyasuku na katta desu. Mizu wa nomiyasuku na katta desu. Water was not easy to drink. Another category 2 verb is wakaru, which means to understand. Its conjunctive form is wakari. Adding the suffix yasui to the conjunctive form wakari yields wakariyasui, wakariyasui, which means easy to understand. The sentence, his way of talking is easy to understand. In Japanese, kare no hanashikata wa wakariyasui desu. Kare no hanashikata wa wakariyasui desu. Hanashikata, way of talking, is derived from the verb hanasu, which means to talk. We learned how to make the conjugation conjunctive plus kata in lesson 46, and it means way of doing. And adding the suffix nikui to the conjunctive wakari makes wakarinikui, wakarinikui, which means hard to understand. The sentence, her way of thinking is hard to understand. In Japanese, kanojo no kangaekata wa wakarinikui desu. Kanojo no kangaekata wa wakarinikui desu. Kangaekata, or way of thinking, comes from the verb kangaeru, which means to think. Now, because these new conjugations are technically i-adjectives, they can be put before any noun to modify it. For example, 分かりやすい言葉. 分かりやすい言葉 means a word that's easy to understand. 分かりにくい先生. 分かりにくい先生 means a teacher who is hard to understand. 飲みやすいジュース. 飲みやすいジュース means juice that's easy to drink. 食べにくいステーキ. 食べにくいステーキ it means steak that's hard to eat. And just like any other adjective, conjunctive yasui and conjunctive nikui can be turned into adverbs. To form adverbs, conjunctive yasui becomes conjunctive yasuku, and conjunctive nikui becomes conjunctive nikuku. For example, the verb akeru means to open. Akeyasui means easy to open, and its adverb is akeyasuku. Adverbs answer the question how of the verb. How will you open it? Easily. Akeyasuku. Akenikui means difficult to open, and its adverb is akenikuku. Akenikuku. How will you open it? With difficulty. Akenikuku. As I explained before in lesson 18, forming adverbs from i-adjectives, the verb suru, which means to do, is a very useful verb to attach to adverbs. For example, akeyasuku shimasu. Akeyasuku shimasu. In English, it means, I will make it easy to open. How will you do it? Easy to open. I'll do it in such a way as it's easy to open, or I'll make it easy to open. Another very useful verb is naru, which means to become. When attached to adjectives, it means that something becomes. For example, akeyasuku narimasu. Akeyasuku narimasu. It means it becomes easy to open. Let's use them in sentences. Doa no bu de doa o akeyasuku shimasu. Doa no bu de doa o akeyasuku shimasu. In English, I'll make the door easy to open with the doorknob. And doa no bu de doa ga akeyasuku narimasu. Doa no bu de doa ga akeyasuku narimasu. In English, the door becomes easy to open with the doorknob. Note that in the first sentence, we use the direct object particle wo for door because the verb shimasu is an active one. And in the second sentence, we use the subject particle ga for door because our verb is narimasu, which is an intransitive verb. It doesn't take a direct object. It is the door that becomes easy to open. So, doa ga. Let's do the same thing for nikui. Akenikuku shimasu. Akenikuku shimasu. I will make it hard to open. Akenikuku narimasu. Akenikuku narimasu. It becomes hard to open. In sentences, kagi de doa o akenikuku shimasu. Kagi de doa o akenikuku shimasu. In English, with a lock, I will make the door difficult to open. Sabi de doa ga akenikuku natta. Sabi de doa ga akenikuku natta. Natta is plain past tense of narimashita, and sabi means rust. In English, because of the rust, the door became difficult to open. Let's do this one more time with the verb wakaru, to understand. The adjective is wakariyasui, easy to understand, and the adverb is wakariyasuku, wakariyasuku, easily understood. Adjective is wakarinikui, difficult to understand, and the adverb is wakarinikuku, wakarinikuku. Wakariyasuku shimasu, wakariyasuku shimasu. I'll make it easy to understand. Wakariyasuku narimasu, wakariyasuku narimasu. It becomes easy to understand. The sentence, with an interpreter or tsuyakusha, I'll make the speech or happyo easy to understand. In Japanese, 通訳者で発表をわかりやすくします。通訳者で発表をわかりやすくします。And using narimas, we have the English sentence. The movie or 映画 becomes easy to understand with subtitles or 字幕スーパー。In Japanese, 映画は字幕スーパーでわかりやすくなります。映画は字幕スーパーでわかりやすくなります。わかりにくくします。わかりにくくします means I'll make it hard to understand. わかりにくくなります。わかりにくくなります means it becomes hard to understand. Using them in sentences, with difficult words or 難しい言葉, I'll make the sentence or 文 hard to understand. In Japanese, 難しい言葉で文をわかりにくくします。難しい言葉で文をわかりにくくします。Because there are no subtitles, the movie becomes hard to understand. In Japanese, 字幕スーパーがないから映画はわかりにくくなります。字幕スーパーがないから映画はわかりにくくなります。Now let's look at other common verbs in all verb categories. I'll use an unpast tense yasui or nikui in my examples. Let's start with category 1 verbs. Miru is to see. Miyasui. Miyasui means easy to see. The movie is easy to see. 映画は見やすいです。映画は見やすいです。The movie is easy to see probably because of the big screen and the dark environment. 教える means to teach. 教えやすい. 教えやすい means easy to teach. Hiragana is easy to teach. ひらがなは教えやすいです。ひらがなは教えやすいです。Now let's look at category 2 verbs. Aruku means to walk. Arukinikui. Arukinikui means hard to walk. High heels are difficult to walk in. High heel は歩きにくいです。High heel は歩きにくいです。Kiku means to ask a question or listen. Kikinikui means hard to ask or hard to listen. Let's use hard to ask in a sentence. That's a hard to ask question. それは聞きにくい質問です。それは聞きにくい質問です。泳ぐ means to swim, and 泳ぎやすい means easy to swim. Freestyle or 平泳ぎ is easy to swim. 平泳ぎは泳ぎやすいです。平泳ぎは泳ぎやすいです。防ぐ means to prevent. 防ぎやすい means easy to prevent. Accidents or 事故 are easy to prevent. 事故は防ぎやすいです。事故は防ぎやすいです。話す means to speak. 話しやすい means easy to speak. Mr. Naka is a person who is easy to speak with. 田中さんは話しやすい人です。田中さんは話しやすい人です。返す means to return something. 返しにくい means hard to return something. This book is difficult to return. この本は返しにくいです。この本は返しにくいです。Maybe because they don't have a drop box or their library hours don't suit your schedule. Hakobu means to transport, and hakobiyasui means easy to transport. Because it's light, this box is easy to transport. 軽いですから、この箱は運びやすいです。軽いですから、この箱は運びやすいです。選ぶ means to choose. erabinikui. Erabinikui means hard to choose. Because the neckties are all pretty, it's hard to choose. 全部のネクタイは綺麗ですから選びにくいです。全部のネクタイは綺麗ですから選びにくいです。住む means to live in a place. 住みやすい。住みやすい means easy to live in. Japan is easy to live in. 日本は住みやすいです。日本は住みやすいです。Japan is easy to live in because of its very efficient public transport system. Yomu means to read. Yominikui. Yominikui means hard to read. Kanji is difficult to read. Kanji wa yominikui desu. Kanji wa yominikui desu. There's only one new ending verb in the whole Japanese language, and that verb is shinu, which means to die. Shininikui. Shininikui means hard to die. Vampires or kyuketsuki don't easily die. Kyuketsuki wa shininikui desu. Kyuketsuki wa shininikui desu. Tsukuru means to make. Tsukuriyasui. Tsukuriyasui means easy to make. This cake is easy to make. このケーキは作りやすいです。このケーキは作りやすいです。Noru means to ride, and norinikui. Norinikui means difficult to ride. Horses are difficult to ride in. Uma wa norinikui desu. Uma wa norinikui desu. Motsu means to hold, and mochinikui. Mochinikui means hard to hold. Because there's no handle, this box is difficult to hold. Handle ga nai kara, この箱は持ちにくいです。ハンドルがないから、この箱は持ちにくいです。Sodatsu means to raise or rear. 育ちやすい。育ちやすい means easy to raise. This plant or 植物 is easy to raise. この植物は育ちやすいです。この植物は育ちやすいです。Tsukao means to use, and 使いにくい。使いにくい means difficult to use. Typewriters are difficult to use. タイプライターは使いにくいです。タイプライターは使いにくいです。Cow means to buy, and 買いやすい。買いやすい means easy to buy. Comic books are easy to buy. 漫画は買いやすいです。漫画は買いやすいです。In Japan, comic books are sold everywhere, so they're so easy to buy. Now on to category 3 verbs. Iku means to go, and ikiyasui. Ikiyasui means easy to go to. Japan is easy to go to, say because there's lots of direct flights. Nihon wa ikiyasui desu. Nihon wa ikiyasui desu. Kuru means to come, and kinikui. Kinikui means difficult to come to. Say you're in Antarctica and you say, wow, this place is difficult to come to. In Japanese, このところは来にくいです。このところは来にくいです。Our last category 3 verb is suru, which means to do. Suru forms compound verbs with nouns. 運転する means to drive. 運転しやすい。運転しやすい means easy to drive. This car is easy to drive. この車は運転しやすいです。この車は運転しやすいです。勉強する means to study. 勉強しにくい。勉強しにくい means hard to study. Because it's noisy, it's hard to study. うるさいから勉強しにくいです。うるさいから勉強しにくいです。To summarize, in this lesson, we learned how to express easy to do and difficult to do by taking the conjunctive form of the verb and adding the suffix yasui to say easy to do, and the suffix nikui, to say difficult to do. For example, easy to eat is tabeyasui, tabeyasui. Difficult to eat is tabenikui, tabenikui. The resulting words are grammatically i-adjectives. To use in a sentence, ramen is easy to eat. Ramen wa tabeyasui desu. Ramen wa tabeyasui desu. And to put the adjective before the noun, easy to eat ramen, tabeyasui ramen, tabeyasui ramen. And like all adjectives, they conjugate to the negative and past tenses. Yasui turns to yasukunai, which means is not easy to do. Past tense of yasui is yasukatta, which means was easy to do. And past tense of yasukunai is yasukunakatta, yasukunakatta, which means was not easy to do. And same with nikui. Nikui turns to nikukunai, to the negative, meaning is not hard to do. Past tense of nikui is nikukatta, which means was hard to do. And past tense of nikukunai is nikukunakatta, which means was not hard to do. The key to speaking fluent Japanese is having a large vocabulary of verbs and verb conjugations. My lessons take care of the verb conjugations part, but you have to build up your verb vocabulary on your own. One of the best ways of doing that is by getting a verb book, and I highly recommend Tuttle's The Complete Japanese Verb Guide, which gives you about 400 Japanese verbs and over 200 compound suru verbs. There's a link at the bottom. So this ends our lesson on conjunctive yasui and conjunctive nikui conjugations. If you have any questions, just write them down in the comment sections below. それじゃ、頑張ってください。お疲れ様でした。If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly on. So please click like, share, or subscribe, and watch the next video in the series. 日本語の勉強に頑張ってください。じゃあ、またね。